All right, Mech Warriors, we've got an incoming question here. Fritz, customizing mechs, variants, building your own mechs, how does that fit into Battletech? How does that plug into Battletech from the perspective of someone new to the game or now building it out and expanding their mech collection, different factions, different opportunities, and how does that present on the tabletop? So the interesting thing about Battletech, jumping in right away, there exists two ways to approach the game. The first is on the pure meta, this idea of looking at the time period and the technology that you're playing and selecting the best possible mechs based on the weapons loadout, based on the armor, based on the speed. And we see this in all the different weight classes, this idea of an optimal machine, light, medium, heavy, and assault. But we also jump into the Battletech narrative. And I'm not so much talking about from the perspective of playing it, a role-playing, an RPG perspective, but the fact if you look through the technical manuals and you see that Battletech is a living universe, there are many mechs out there that were released for an intended role, and they do a good job at it or an interesting job, but by changing some of the variants, it's a completely different mech. It's a completely different role. And then you come across certain mechs that were designed, but they're not optimal, or they have various shortcomings, and certain variants later on correct that. And then, of course, there's some variants just for the sake of variants based on availability to the houses or depending on the time period. A really great example, one of my favorite mechs, one of my favorite machines, the Charger. Now, do we need a fast assault class mech when we have gazillions of bug mechs out there? Locusts, cicadas, wasps, stingers, Jenners. Well, Jenners, not really. I don't really consider Jenner a scout mech. It's more of an aggressive attacking mech, but it could scout. It's very, very fast. Yes, absolutely. I mean, for an assault mech that is recon-based and speed, the Charger does it very, very well. We're going to put aside for a moment getting into hand-to-hand combat, punching and kicking with the tonnage. That's where the lulls is, and that's one of the primary reasons I play it. But I bring up the Charger because for its intended role, unsupported, going into dangerous areas, the armor and tonnage of an assault mech with the speed of a recon mech, it works. But then we see some of the variants that switch it over to a dedicated, a true assault class mech. And in that case, it is a completely different mech and is completely changed. So you're going to see this in some of the variants. You're also going to see some variants that, in my opinion, work a little bit better as intended. One of the variants that I play is the Locust, where we're replacing the machine guns. Locust doesn't have enough armor, and I need to keep that speed up. It doesn't have enough armor. I don't want to be engaging infantry with machine guns. Yes, I'm going to vape your infantry stand, but you have 3 or 4 or 5. You got incoming Karnovs. You got goblins dropping stuff off. You got bulldogs in support. I don't want to be anywhere near infantry if I'm a Locust. So from that perspective, I use my Locusts not only as spotters, but to attack other mechs, drop that bug bomb on them. I want to switch to the variant that replaces the machine guns with two SRM packs or two SRM 2-packs. That combined with the medium laser, getting 2 or 3 or 4 to rear armor, that's got some bite to exploit. And then if things get really crazy, just kind of run away. So absolutely their variants are there. Now in terms of customization, rules as written, rules as intended. There are detailed mech creation rules. You can pop those arms off your Marauder, remove the PPCs, and put in large lasers, autocannons, clan tech. It's still a Marauder. It's just changed. Absolutely, you can customize your mechs. The variants are really there to fit in the narrative and give some ideas, but you can create a variant on the variant. You can create your own variant based on the machine, based on the mech. And bringing that to any Battletech game, myself, and I think I could say my experience in the Battletech community, no one's going to look at it and say you can't play that, because you're not just dropping this stuff on for free. There's calculations. You're making, depending on if it's a medium, a heavy, or an assault, certain concessions. You're paying the battle value. You might be opening up more tactica. You can strip down everything and just put on short-range missiles. Go for kind of the hornet's nest approach, but you're paying for that in battle value. You're paying for that in slots, however you're going to make that work. And I could argue you're exposing yourself to massive potential vulnerability because that ammo is packed all over. You want to be the short-range longbow, you can do it. So it works out within the rules. And as long as you let your opponent know ahead of time, hey, this is the mech that I'm playing. Here's my technical readout sheet. The only time we don't see that is if it's a special mission where you have stuff hidden. And even in that case, by the time it reveals and sensors reveal it, let me see that sheet. Again, you've paid for the battle value, C-bills, you've done the augmentation, and it's good to go. Now, as a side note, this is an interesting time for Battletech. And I'm not just talking about the catalyst plastics that are out in the wild from that perspective, but I think we are there. Truly, you could design your own mechs for your own factions and 3D print them. You can pull in mechs, as long as the scale somewhat matches from other areas, and play Battletech with them. And this is where things get really interesting and things are really undiscovered. By no means, new tech is being discovered all the time, whether it's prototypes, lost tech, prototypes, or rediscovered mechs, or just you've got a production facility back online and you're pumping out new mechs. The universe, the inner sphere, the inner sphere is a big, big place. Clan tech, big place. A lot of experimental stuff that's out there, jumping from time period to time period. You could design your own mech. It could be in production and tie that in. Absolutely. The technical manuals are not the end, be-all, end-all, the only known mechs. By no means. I mean, they're the majority of them. They're the mass-produced mechs. They're the ones that are continually produced, or if you discover lost tech and you discover 20 new mechs ready to go, it's probably going to be something in the tech manuals. But again, from that perspective, if we're looking at rules as written, you could design your own mechs for your own faction. You could print them up, 3D print them. You could paint them. You could bring them to the table. And I would love absolutely to fight against them. And no one in the Battletech community would have any challenges or any issues with that, because it goes back to, you're not getting it for free. You're paying the battle value. You're paying the C-bills. You're paying the tonnage, whatever that currency is going to be to get it on the table.